Alright, so let's get started. So I haven't done almost nothing on the track since my last stream because I thought, maybe it's like an unfolding story. But I have done a little bit on the track, so I'll just play the loop that I've got now just so everyone can familiarise themselves with where they are. Okay, so it's not sounding bad. Originally I'd started writing this track in E Phrygian, but I've switched to A minor. It just seemed to fit what I'd done a bit better. So I wanted to change around some of these chords a bit because I was still finding them a little bit too straight. So YouTube Live, right? Well, I'm going to search for that then, George, after this, and I will have a good look. So I thought I'd put in some minor seventh chords into the track, just to see how that sounded. So at the moment I've just started. The first chord is A minor, but let's try a minor seventh just to see how that would sound. Okay. I like it with the minor seventh, but I'm thinking maybe it should be like another section of the track. Let's duplicate what I've got here and do another section of the track. So I'm going to use a special maxYMiser command here, which indicates different sections of the track, if you like. If you press space, you'll see you get this backwards arrow here. And that means that I can loop each section in between the arrows independently of each other, which is originally I planned that it would be used for live performance, but actually I'm kind of just using it for composition these days, just to figure out what sort of things go with each other. So if I flick into jam mode, it will just loop stuff in between that arrow. I'll show you quickly how that operates. But I can then switch patterns as well, and it does it at the end of the current pattern, so I'll show you. Just like that, basically. If anyone has any questions about what I'm doing, then definitely stick them in the chat. I'm watching it, so I should be able to answer anything that you've got in mind. Yeah, that feature was added with the release of maxYMiser Live. So there's a tracker for Game Boy called Little Sound DJ, which is super famous. And you can play live with it. Now, I've never really sort of played live in that way where you manipulate the tracker and switch between patterns and stuff like that. I sort of come from a DJing background, so I was always using STJ, but I figured, well, other musicians are kind of working live in LSDJ, so let's add some handy features in maxYMiser to allow you to play live. And I think UltraSyd, for example, is using some of this stuff to play live. Yeah, it's fun having the kind of live mode. You can use it without the screen and stuff as well. And live, I've allowed for that. Again, it's nothing I really kind of use myself. You can also use maxYMiser as a MIDI sound module, and that works without the screen as well. You can just set up your disc in a certain way and it will auto boot and load your instruments, and then you can use it like a sound module. Alright, so what can we do with that C just to rev it up a bit? There's a website which I like, I'll stick it in the chat actually, that I'm using to figure out chords and stuff. I don't know them all just off the top of my head, you know, but I am aware of certain things. And sometimes what I do is I just like literally got this keyboard and I don't even have it plugged in. I just kind of count the notes and work out my arpeggios. Alright. Sounding quite nice. I'm loving those inversions there. Sounds like I know what I'm doing. Alright, so we've got sort of two different chord sections now, which are based on each other, but they're different. So I'm going to free a bit of space up by moving those hi-hats and combining them with the drums and the bass. Let's save what we've got first. So the way I combine my hi-hats onto my other channels is to use a mixer sequence. So I'm going to create a new one first. I'm good, thanks, Marie. I really appreciate you you joining for another stream. Right, so in this mixer sequence that I've created, I've made the first step noise, and then it will loop on the second step, which is going to be the kick drums. So let's first, you'll see that there are some hi-hats which don't overlap with the kick drums of the bass. So maxYMiser has this underlay, dear me, where is it? Advanced edit, that's right, this underlay feature, so that you can take a track and then underlay the notes on another one. So if you notice, some hi-hats have just appeared. I'll mute everything else so you can listen to that. So that's probably not good enough. Yeah, those lonely hi-hats that I just put in aren't going to be good enough, so I'm going to transfer some of the other ones. I should probably do like an automated method of transferring the hi-hats, but you know. Alright, so I've got some questions there. I'm going to answer them. But first I just want to explain what I did. So I went on track 1, and everywhere where there was a kick drum, which is instrument 1, and there was a hi-hat on channel 2, I changed the mixer command. Okay. So to answer Crazy Q's question, he says, if you use the SXX command, will that send via MIDI clock as well? So if you have MYM as the master clock, then for example, the SP1200 sync to the SX command, yes, it will, but only if maxYMiser is the MIDI master. If you change maxYMiser to be the MIDI slave, then it will be locked at 6 and there's nothing you can do to change it. You can also run maxYMiser as a Roland Sync 24 source and slave too, but I've never released the cable schematics for the adapter that you need to make for that. I hope that answers your question, Crazy Q. So now I need to put some hi-hats where the bass was. So MOC changes the mixer sequence to C, right? So normally the kick drum has sequence B. Normally the kick drum has sequence 3, right? Which will just produce a kick drum with no hi-hat, like that. So what changing it to C will do, it inserts a hi-hat at the start of the sound. Like that. So I hope that was clear enough. Cool. So I'm going to do a similar process now, but with the bass. A lot of these chiptune things, there is a lot of donkey work in this. Probably not in this particular session, but later on I plan to show you all how to do some fake reverbs and delays. Right, so the bass needs M0D. There. Not there either, there's already a hi-hat there. That was interesting. It's because I don't have haven't set the repeat point on sequence D up properly. That's great. So we don't need the contents of channel 2 anymore. Cool, that's sounding quite good. But we can add a lot more texture to this with a technique that I use all the time, which is just to create a very short blip. Which is just a square wave only, so I'll explain what I've just done. So it's literally the volume envelope is just starting at maximum and then dropping linearly down to 0. And I've just got the square wave set on the mixer. So we can insert some blips at certain points. Now that doesn't sound very much at the moment, but you need to work with the sounds. So So I'm literally looking where there's space in this drum and bass channel. I will end up combining the two channels, but I find it's just a bit easier to work with them separately if you can. Right, that doesn't work very well because I've not set the arpeggio on the square wave for that blip. There we go, now the magic is happening. Now you don't need to, you know, put one of these blips on every space. I mean, maybe you don't want to do it at all. Maybe you think it doesn't sound very good, or maybe it doesn't fit the track. But I find that it's good to, you know, leave space in your tune. So I'm just kind of doing it a bit by feel and a bit by kind of randomness. So I'm going to go, the chords go up there, so I'm going to go down with the blip. Just to create a bit of a change. Now, what I've done there is to turn down the volume of the strings, which I can do with this global instrument volume control here, so I don't need to mess with the volume sequence. But I can hear that, you know, I thought it would be a smart idea to go down when the strings went up, but in this case it sounds quite odd, so let's not do that. If anyone's got any questions, you know, don't hesitate to just throw them in the chat. sounded quite nice with just need to figure out what G major, obviously, when you're doing when you're in A minor. So it is good to kind of mess with the volumes with these bleep sounds. Great. So I'm going to merge those two now. Let's have a listen to what we've got. Okay. So what you can hear there is just one channel. So it's got a kick drum, it's got bass, it's got a hi-hat, and it's got that little arpeggio bleep. So it's surprising how much you can just fit in on chiptune. And it's one of the things that I think is really cool. Never too late to turn it into a banger. Yeah, maybe. I was wondering earlier about adding a breakbeat, but I kind of, you know, I've used a breakbeat in like the last 10 tunes that I've done, so. So let's not do it for this one. Now you'll hear that there is like a weird phasing on the bleep here because it is playing exactly the same thing on the strings. So I'm going to go up an octave. There we go. That's sounding like the basis of something interesting. I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the other chords. I'm just going to go through and change these arpeggios. So I'm going to copy this bass drum bass pattern, and I'm actually going to create a new one. Because I want to keep the old patterns, because in the past I've always sort of overwritten patterns that I've added to, but I've started keeping them because I found that later on you kind of regret merging them. Like if you have a look at this pattern here, this one with all the instruments on that I was so pleased about, like it's a nightmare to decipher that. And if you just want to take the bass out or you know, or just look at those bleeps, you've got to spend a while kind of processing it. Whereas if you've kept them all, you've got all the separate patterns, you can just go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm liking that, and I think that the two go quite well together, so I'm actually going to remove that loop that I put in. I think what this is crying out for is a kind of classic chiptune melody that goes over the top. So I'm going to make kind of just a classic chiptune lead sound. Which is just a square wave and a software square wave, so it's, you know, the SID sound basically. So like a square wave SID, which sounds like nothing at the moment because I need to set the volume envelope. And I'll start on the maximum and then drop by one just to give a bit of a click on the start of the sound. And I might also do the first step an octave higher. You can hear the difference, but it's quite subtle. But you know, subtleties are important as well. probably just do kind of something like that over the top with plenty of portmanteaus and that kind of thing. We've got Crazy Q and Stu in the chat. That's actually really awesome. Okay. Not too bad, not too bad. Okay, so we have a statement here. I recently found that I can transpose just one instrument on a particular track. Can you demonstrate that, as I'm not sure? Yeah, I can certainly demonstrate that. So the feature you're talking about is in advanced edit, but before I mess up my tune, I'll save it. I don't mind messing up my tune, but you know. So it's in the transpose menu. So I'm going to just transpose the bass. So that's how you do it. You this top bit is for the current instrument, and you make sure it's on the one you want to transpose, and then you can transpose it an octave up or down, or you can transpose it a semitone up or down. You can do the track, the pattern, the song, or the block. So I hope that answers your question there. Yeah, that's right. You highlight the instrument in the list here. Okay. Hey James, how's it going? No, there's no donks on this one. I should put a donk on it though. Everything sounds better with a donk on it. Oh, it was going so well. I was kind of... My mind was following the melody there, which is a good sign. You know, sometimes when I listen to, you know, the great chip tuners from like the good old days, like, you know, Mad Max or Scavenger, the guys from the 80s and 90s, they were such masters of doing that kind of melody. And I sometimes think that that is a weakness that I have as a composer, because I come from a more like a dance music kind of background, and I'm more about changes and making it hectic. So it doesn't come naturally to me to make a that sort of smooth sounding lead. But this one is sounding kind of all right though, so that's good. Whenever I try and do like a demo scene style tune, I don't know, it's not my strongest suit. Let's just leave it at that. One of those old school chip tuners is a guy called Tao, and he's comes from near Hamburg. I've never met him, but if you listen to his chip tunes, you'll notice that they're actually a lot quieter than just about every other gwEm chip tune that you've heard. Now he is deliberately using quieter volumes because he believes that the gwEm sound chip sounds a lot smoother and rounded if you don't kind of have everything turned up to 11, so to speak. Now, I'm kind of a turn it up to 11 guy, but I must admit, when you listen to a Tao tune, it is smoother and more rounded, and I guess that is partly to do with the fact he never uses maximum volume in any of his tunes. So that might be something to think about as well. Yeah, you're right, Damo. He sounds really creamy, the way he does his tunes. It's quite unique, actually, I think. It's clearly kind of going to A there, isn't it? Maybe that's too obvious. Maybe I'll try going down to a D. Yeah, there definitely is some distortion, Damo, when you max everything. Okay, so ModMate going between 7 and 5 makes the song shuffle. So I can demonstrate that to you now. So here is the track without any shuffle, right? Right. And now with those speed commands enabled, it just swings a little bit more. So obviously the average is speed 6, but each 16th note lasts a slightly different length, which gives it that kind of funky swing to it. The first gwEm chiptune I heard with a swing was a song called Spring Party by DMASC, which was released at the first demo party I went to, and he was using a tracker called Triplex, which is done by Big Alec, but Damo, who's actually on the chat, had pimped it up with a bunch of new features. So it was the first demo party I went to, and I remember I put loads of effort into like coming up with this tune. I was using MusicMon, and I was pretty happy with it. But as soon as that DMASC Spring Party tune came over the sound system during the compos, I knew that that song just had to be the winner. And it used this kind of shuffle technique. I just thought it sounded brilliant. So I knew that I was going to have to do it in maxYMiser when the time came. There. I'm trying to do something with that section of melody which is a bit less root 1, but you know, maybe root 1 is the way to go. No, root 1 is, I'm not sure. There's always these decisions when you're working on a track, and sometimes the subtleties make no difference whatsoever and you can be quite slapdash with stuff. And sometimes the subtleties are really important, and you know, like going from one note to the other is, you've got to have the right kind of transition in your melody, or it just doesn't work, or it doesn't work quite as well as you wanted. But like sometimes you can make like massive errors in your tune, like stuff out of key or things off the beat, and you don't hear it. But there must be some algorithm for determining if a change you're making is important or not. But I kind of feel that this next note is an important decision, so I'm taking my time over it. I'm going to go to G there. The other thing which I do, which you've probably all noticed, is that I've got this webcam and it's directly in front of me. That's, if I look at the tracker, I'm also looking at the webcam. But most of the time when I'm tracking, I'm not looking at the tracker at all. I'm kind of looking outside, or in this case at the chat. Because if you look at the tracker, you can see what's coming up. And I think it's better to hear it like, you know, a third party, not quite knowing what's going to happen. Okay, I'm liking that. It's sounding kind of a bit un-gwEmish at the moment. So I'm going to just play the pattern and I'm going to drop the blip that I added and you can hear the difference. I don't know if you could catch that, it's quite subtle, but that little arpeggio that I added into the space just fattens the sound very slightly and makes it sound a bit fuller. Okay, so I hope that was relatively clear. Again, it's quite subtle. It probably sound just as good without that kind of extra arpeggio in the track. And I imagine if you were playing at a chiptune party, you probably wouldn't hear it, but I can hear it, and I prefer it like that. Once I I've only joined one guitar lesson in my life, and it was with my favourite guitar player, who's Uli John Roth, who was a very early guitar player in the Scorpions, and he explained, and it was kind of crazy and a bit hippie, but his theory was that musical notes are on a spectrum and you travel between them. It's like a journey, and that's fairly understandable. You can kind of imagine notes as colours and that kind of thing, but for him the next step from that was noting that the spaces between the notes are also a spectrum. So you not just worrying about what the next note in your melody is, but also about where it goes. Now, this is a little example of that, right? Now that sounds pretty good, but it has a completely different, all I'm going to do is move that B an eighth note back, and it has a completely different impact. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting the difference now. I was going to have it here, but now I've just demonstrated it to you guys. I'm going to have it yet another eighth note along. Yeah, maybe he had an early copy of Autosurf gwEm. It was a funny guitar lesson, actually. he also told me that I should take up meditation, and he felt that I was lacked focus, and I mean, he's right to an extent. You know, being a sort of drum and bass rave guy, like I didn't want to hear my favourite guitarist tell me, oh yeah, you need to start meditation, and you know, you've got to look at the spectrum of the space between the notes and all this stuff. But kind of having reflected on it, like, he was right about everything he was telling me at the time. One thing which I do, and I have taken from that. Well, I've taken a few things, to be fair, but I'm not going to like start meditating. But you can sort of achieve like a meditative kind of thing if you just concentrate on your breathing and just slow it down. You find that you can focus a bit better on the music that you're doing, because I'm kind of a high energy, hectic guy. So I want like a manic tune, but you can force yourself to be more relaxed just by focusing on your breathing and slowing it down. And, you know, it sounded a bit wacky to me, but I tried it anyway, and it worked. So there we go. Thanks a lot to everyone for joining me again. That's been great. I think that I definitely had more viewers this time, although a bit less chat. But I really appreciate everyone dialing in. If you've got a chance, just if you could follow me, that would be great. I mean, it doesn't matter too much, but that would be nice.